Hey guys, it's Meal Before Me, and I'm back with another food review. This time we're checking out Yellowstone frozen meals. Yellowstone sells cowboy-themed items, including coffee, chili, and more, inspired by the television series Yellowstone, which I didn't know when I bought them. Now that I do know, the tone of the website makes a lot more sense because it read like fiction or satire, and there was no explanation of who or what a Dutton is. Clearly, I've never seen the show. Regardless, the meals I got weren't listed on the site, so I don't know how many they have, but my grocery had 4, so I gave them a try. This will be a real quick review where I tell you how these were over footage from my phone since I was away from my PC, and I'll be rating them by repeatability, meaning would I eat them again? Starting with the Bunkhouse Braised Beef Stew. And I know I didn't say to the table, I sometimes skip that in shorter reviews. But I really liked the big chunks of everything here. It made it feel more substantial and homemade, but it tasted like any cheap beef stew. And not from frozen meals, from a can. It even had that slight tinny flavor to it. So if you aren't that picky or you're fine with eating something like Campbell's beef stew, you'd probably be fine with this. I just wasn't into it, so repeatability for me is no. Next was Rip's Ranch Hand Beef and Cheese Pasta Bake. It looked good, and the texture of the meat and pasta was nice, nothing mushy or mealy. It was also very filling. It just didn't have a lot of flavor despite looking like it should. That said, considering the number of frozen meals I've tried that were genuinely gross, something tasting plain isn't bad. You can give it a splash of hot sauce or toss a different cheese on top to liven it up, and I still think it's fine without that. So for repeatability, would I eat this again? Yes. Next was the Dutton family barbecue meatloaf and mash, and this one was my favorite. The mashed potatoes were thick and creamy instead of runny, and while the meatloaf had that McRib sort of texture that's common in frozen meals, similar to Salisbury steak, it wasn't as bad. It was actually somewhere between that and regular meatloaf texture. And what made it work for me was the sauce. It was tangy and sweet, but stronger than a typical ketchup-based glaze. It definitely had a punch to it, so if you prefer brown gravy with your meatloaf, or you don't like sweet barbecue sauce, you may not like this. I did, so repeatability for this one is yes. Last of the Wild Frontier was Jimmy's Cowboy Chili with Beans, and this was similar to the beef and cheese bake where it was really filling but low on flavor, except this one had even less flavor, almost like it wasn't seasoned at all. I will say the texture was really good, the beans especially were nicely cooked, and the meat wasn't as mushy as it looks here, but I do think it should have been reduced longer for a thicker consistency and more concentrated flavor. So for repeatability, would I eat this again? No. Not because it's bad, but because I could get a much better tasting chili off the shelf for less. Getting into my final thoughts, the best thing I can say for these is that they didn't taste weird. Because if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know how many frozen meals I've had that were full of funk and nasty aftertastes. These didn't have any of that. They just tasted like basic meals prepared with basic ingredients. And while some skimped on flavor, they still fill you up. And to be honest, sometimes that's all you need. My main issue is the price. They're $6.49, though I got them on sale for $4.99, and even at $5, given how plain they are, I'd rather make my own big pot of stew or chili for less. They were larger than some brands I've tried for the same price, with these ranging from 10.75 ounces to 14.5 ounces, so the issue isn't the portions, it's just the simplicity. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy these rather than cook. But if cooking isn't an option, I do think these taste better and at least less weird and chemically than a lot of the mainstream well-known brands I've tried. And I did appreciate that the trays were square. I don't see that often. But let me know if you tried these or any of the other items listed on their site. I don't drink coffee, so I'd be curious to hear comparisons from anyone who does. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching MBM. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you snackies when I'm backies.